trips with the Bean Life Science Museum, guys. This week we are going to be talking about leaves and trees. All right, so let's talk about trees a little bit first. Trees have leaves and they need certain things, and the leaves help them to get some of those things. So what are the things that a tree needs? A tree needs sunlight, and it needs water, and it needs soil, right? So it needs those three things. So the leaves help it to get sunlight, to photosynthesize and create energy from the sun, create sugar within the tree. So we're going to talk about leaves a little bit, and we're also just going to talk about the other things that a tree needs and how that shows in the tree. So let's talk about leaves first. We have this big old diagram full of leaf types, and there's lots of different ways to describe leaves. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of those ways, but just know that these are fairly subjective. That means it's mostly up to your opinion. So if you say, well, this leaf looks more double serrated than serrated, then you could totally be right. So just make sure that it's all about opinion when you're recording these things. When you put them in your field notebook to describe your leaves, it's all about what you want to remember, right? Okay, so I have a bunch of leaves here. They're all labeled. First things first, let's look at the shape of the leaf. So for example, we have ones like this cherry leaf here that is very oval shaped, right? It's pointy, right, on both ends, but it's shaped like an oval. Compare that to, say, our white birch leaf, and this is more heart-shaped, or even a little bit more triangular. So that's how we describe it, is like an oval or like a triangle, or even these ones down here kind of look like a spoon. So that's how you'll describe the shape of the leaf. The next thing is that you're going to look at the edge of the leaf. It's called the margin. So we have lots of different margins on these leaves. We can look here at the holly leaf and see that it's super, super spiky. So these plants have lots of thorns on the leaf, and that would have a spiky margin. We might also look at this one right here, the raspberry bush. We have it labeled as double serrated. That means that it has lots of little tiny teeth on it, and the teeth have kind of teeth within the teeth, which is why it's double serrated. Or even down here, if we look at these leaves, we can see that they're very oval shaped, and they don't have anything on the edge. It means that it's an entire margin is what it's called, which means it just has a smooth edge to it. Now, one last thing that you're going to look at when looking at the shapes of different leaves is you're going to be looking at how the leaves are arranged on a branch. So some of them will just be single, like these leaves, but some of them will be arranged what's called pinnately, where we have it right here. Pinnate just means that the leaves are all along a line right here, or they're palmate, which means they all come from one point. So this one almost looks like a palm with like fingers coming out of it like that. And then we have the pinnate leaves that go right along the stem instead of all coming from one single point. I do have two other types of leaves on here that you might not realize were leaves. We have the spruce leaf and the cedar leaf. And the spruce leaf is nice and pointy. We're going to get to look at some evergreen leaves when we do our activity, so we'll go into a little bit more detail then. But these are still leaves. They do still help with photosynthesis. And then this cedar here has those kind of scaly needles. So it's similar to these ones, but these ones have smooth needles and these ones have scaly needles. Okay, let's talk really quick about other things that a tree needs. So I have a cross section here of this tree ring. Now we said that a tree needs three things. It needs soil, it needs water, and it needs sunlight. So we know the leaves can help it to get sunlight, but it needs the roots to help it to get nutrients from the soil and water from the soil, right? And when we look at the rings of a tree, when we cut a tree in half like this, the rings are formed by the different amounts of water that a tree gets every single year. So it grows a new ring every year, which is why we can count the rings and say it has been this many years that this tree is old. And we can say that the really thick rings, like this one you can see is a really thick ring. It's about that big, which seems really small, but some of them over here are a lot smaller. This means that the tree grew a lot and had a lot of water during its season here and a lot less over here. So, just something cool we can see about the different things that a tree needs and how it shows the different evidence of those things on its rings or in its leaves.
Hi everybody, let's talk about our activity this week for trees and leaves. We're going to ask that everybody get outside and that you guys go on a walk and try to identify some leaves for your field journal. So let's look at these leaves really quick. Do you notice what structure they are? Can you tell what way they're growing off of these stems? You could take this and put this in your field journal and tape it in, or take a photo and put it in. These are pinnate, if you remember, from Marin. So let's keep looking. Let's look at a couple more for our field journal. Okay, now let's look at this one up close really quick for a second. So these are our scale needles, okay? But if you were not able to remember, make sure that you use your observation skills and really use your journal. You could say, okay, looking at these, they kind of remind me of the needles, but there's kind of like layers on the edge. They're a little bit spiky as I feel them. So use your clues. Make it so that your journal works for you. There are tons of charts online that you can refer to. You don't have to have them memorized at the top of your head. So make sure that you use your journal to help you identify the leaves. Okay, so this is kind of what we're looking at when we're talking about how this plant was a little bit needle-like. This is what we're referencing and remembering. So we can look side to side. You could even put these next to each other in your field journal for comparison. And look at this needle. It doesn't have the scale. You can feel it. It's smooth across. But these are kind of the skills that we're looking for. We're going to use our journal to our best advantage, okay? So make sure that you guys get out there this week. You pull off some plants with permission, if it's okay with the people who you're with and the plants are safe to grab. Put them in your field journal and let us know how it goes.